discussions, plus a local events calendar. It's Jay, Stone Go. I'm Gary Fife, Java Difficultos. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio again. We appreciate you all checking in with us. And we're going to have an interesting discussion. We finally managed to labor the chief's time and get him in here for a while now. You've been having a heck of a schedule. I know we'd tried a couple times before, but I understand that, there are a lot more things that are more important than us, but we're glad you're here today, sir. As usual, we like to give you the first couple minutes there to give us a state of the state, so to speak. How we doing as a tribe so far?
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for the invite, and again, that it's been, it's probably the third time we had to reschedule, but it's always good to come here and visit with you and talk about the nation. But first things first, congratulate you on the Living Legend Award.
Oh, thank you.
That was a pretty good honor for you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, let me mention Jason Salzman is also with us. He's doing his duty today.
Yeah, he's my sidekick.
Yeah. All right, let's make him earn his keep today.
Yeah. No, we're doing well as a nation. Still moving, progressing. We're still going to have our battles with the state, and referring to the governor. But we're still moving forward. I know the tobacco compact was one of the things that they was hoping to override, but I think they're having a meeting Monday to have a meeting again to see if the senators are going to override it, in which myself, some of the executive staff is going to attend. I did reach out to Speaker to see if any of the council reps would like to attend too. I do know that he is calling some of the senators, trying to get them persuaded to vote no. But I did reach out to other 4 tribal leaders and some more other tribal leaders as well to see if they attend. I think we're going to have a big showing from tribal leaders that will attend in support of those that are going to vote to override it. So,
well, let me ask you, I guess this question, it's an overriding scenario. Years ago, when I was a young pup working in Washington, D.C., we had a guy from Washington State actually enter a bill into Congress to abrogate all the treaties and just sever the relationship between tribes and the federal government and put an end to it. He said, I forget his rhetoric, which wasn't very nice, but that bill got shot down, never made it even to a hearing, I don't think. And I noticed some similarities between some of the things he had said decades ago and some of what we have heard from the governor. And as I looked at it as an observer, I said, well, this guy's trying to sever the sovereignty relationship. He will be happy if all of those laws and things are all wiped off the book. And as he says, we're all Oklahomans, but we already know that. But we do have this special relationship with the federal government. And he said a couple of times in his public speeches that he was against this relationship based on race. And that just, made the fur on the back of my neck stand up. And I think, what did this guy do for, he duck out of his history class or something, his civics or political action courses in school? What do you think when you hear that, when you hear him, try and package everything as a racial question?
That's his comment as far as being race. We don't see that. He keeps referring to the Supreme Court ruling, the McGirt ruling, but to us it's all public safety. Again, we're all Oklahomans. I mean, we're Mvskoke Creek first, but we're also Oklahomans. And as far as, I don't know what he thinks. We have one law instead of having 2 laws, like he's persuading to say. It's all one law. It's all about public safety, and there's a lot of opportunities there to work with us, not against us. And that's the way we've been pushing it, as well as, we had our intertribal last week, and the governor, Governor Antoby, and also the other tribal leaders see the same way. Why can't we just sit down and work together? And he's not yet done that. I'm willing to work more with the legislators than the governor himself.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, if I may, I think it's an indication of the lack of actual education for Oklahoma students, going back to when Governor Stitt went through Oklahoma curriculum. I guarantee he never learned about the sovereign and political status of tribal nations, rather than that they're just a race. The kids still don't learn those things in school now. So, not to give him a pass, but he's just ignorant of the actual realities of what tribal nations are. You have essentially 39 countries inside of your state. Act accordingly instead of combatively. I don't. That's all there is to say about it.
Well, as you were saying that, I was, of course, recalling all my time in Tulsa Public Schools, where we were never taught any of that.
No.
It was all, everything started after the land rush, and they even celebrated that. And there's never been discussions of touchy subjects like how the oil companies have taken over most of the mineral resources, or how efforts to make Oklahoma a state,
Right.
the state of Sequoia, were shot down by the political relations. Of course, you got this movie coming out now, Killers of the Harvest Moon, that kind of talks about one of them. But your comment about ignorance, I have to underline that. We were never taught any, and whether it's purposeful or whatever, we were stuck with it. And now, of course, in the last couple of decades, we've had a resurgence of the tribes asserting their powers, and that have always been there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that Chief Hill said in a statement, directly responding to Governor Stitt, he used a term called willful ignorance. And I think that's what we're moving into, Gary, because at some point, you're the governor of Oklahoma. The excuse of I didn't learn about this in school goes away when it's in front of you, and you need to be doing everything you can to learn about these nations that you need to be working with. And that includes simply realizing that they're a political entity and not just a race of people. And I think that's that we've talked about on this program before, that divide and not understanding that. So, I mean, we're still there. We've not made zero progress. So it's not like we're sitting around saying, oh, you're right. We may need to get together and debate whether we're just a race or whether we're a sovereign nation. We've never said that one bit. And so it's one side that needs to come together and talk with us about this and look at us the way we should be looked at.
Sure. Like, not to beat this horse to death, but if you were to walk out on the streets of Okmulgee here and ask people about it, they would not know.
No. It's not something that people make a priority to
I understand,
to know about.
There have been some victories in the legislature, and of course, it did sign some bills, and there are some things that went forward. One thing that I think is significant for our culture is the wearing of tribal regalia during graduation ceremonies. I mean, if you want to wear a plume or an eagle feather on your cap, you should be able to. And of course, there are some enlightened school districts that say, "Fine, go right ahead," and then there are others holding a hard line. And what we hear out of the legislature is, "Okay, well, we'll approve of this. We think it will work. It doesn't seem to harm anybody." But others, of course, are saying, "No, you got to be all in this gray uniform when you graduate." What are your thoughts there when it comes butts heads against culture?
I think Ryan Walters done that when he sent that out, and we had a lot of the local schools had called, and I did run into a couple of superintendents, and they was fine with it. I think there were some schools that seen the memo that he sent out, and was actually scared, to let the native wear their regalia or whatever they wanted to wear during graduation. But there were some local schools that was fine with it. They let pass the board, but you still had you still had some that was hesitant to do it. But
And Chief, you were on the school board at DPU schools for several years, and was there ever any did you ever have to deal with that issue as a school board?
there was never no request to to wear a beaded cap or feather back then. I think this just come up probably the last 5 or 6 years that let the natives wear the feather, beaded cap, whatever. But I think a lot of schools they don't mind.
Right. One thing I've noticed or haven't noticed is the reaction to the boarding schools. Like, you don't hear anything from like Sequoia or Riverside or any of the other schools.
No, you don't, because
And it doesn't cause like a earthquake at those graduations that somebody walks in with the feather, or a beaded cap or whatever.
Yeah, if they're wearing a feather, those kids, bless their heart, they earned it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got a few other questions to toss at you, and we hope we can educate our listeners here. Now, we've had, of course, that ongoing tax battle for years now. Where do we go from here? I mean, is it still going to be a really contentious subject? What do you think?
on the tax bill for tobacco.
Tobacco, gaming, you name it.
Just compacting
Just
in general,
all of
yeah.
them. The tobacco issue was compact that was up because ours is not due, expires till next year. So it really didn't affect us, but I think us, Cherokee, and another tribe, ours expires next year. But those that received a letter, and that was my statement at Intertribal, that even at United Nations of Oklahoma meeting we had, that his thing was to divide and conquer. He picks on certain tribes to see if he can negotiate with them.
Right,
but,
yeah.
And
It's usually smaller tribes.
it's yeah. And when you say smaller, we're talking about the tribes that don't have the resources or revenue that some of the other tribes has.
Just the
So
numbers.
so we didn't want
population.
to sound say the smaller tribes, but
Sure,
those don't
yeah.
have quite the resources. So he kind of nitpicks them to get them over, like he did in gaming. But we had a meeting with all, I think it was 24 of the 39 tribes was on a call, and they all agreed that they're not going to sign that. They're not going to agree to it. So it's one of those situations as a gaming, when I first come in office 2020, you had, I think, 35 of the 39 tribes in a meeting, and everyone stayed united. And that's why I encouraged them, we need to do the same thing here, because it impacts everyone, all the tribes. Even though ours don't expire next year, we still have to stick together. And I think that's consensus of all the tribes, that we're just going to stay united. And hopefully they'll have a meeting. I know that we lost by one vote, 31 votes. You need 32 to override his veto. They will have a meeting Monday at 9 o'clock. So myself, Second Chief, and a couple of members of the executive branch, and I did reach out to Speaker Lowe to encourage any council reps that do want to attend. I did reach out to the other 4 tribal leaders. Chief Batten did respond, and Chief Johnson, that they'll probably, Chief Johnson said they'll attend. Seminole Nation, probably some of his cabinet members. Chief Barnes also texted him, and he said he's going to try to attend with some of his council reps as well. So I think we need to do a showing that we're in support of those that are supporting to override the veto, even to show those who's going to vote against it. I think again, we just need to come together and show a big presence there of all the tribal leaders there at the Capitol come Monday morning.
I think our confidence is high, too, because there was some maneuvering that went on in that first veto vote, override vote. There were about 8 legislators absent that day. Whether you believe that's convenient or not is up to you.
But those 8,
tactic.
I think
those
those
8
8
would have
supported.
voted.
They supported the nation.
They would have overridden the veto with the vote of the folks that weren't there. So, I mean, for them to have another meeting on it, very encouraging.
One of the things we've noticed in the past few months was a statement by the Attorney General.
Getting a drum.
Drummond.
Thank you.
Getting a
Found
Drummond.
that drummer Getman there. That he was going to work on improving the relationships between the governor's office and tribal governments. Now, have you had any talks with him? Have there been any propositions or discussions going on that would
Just discussions after he got in office. Had a meeting with him, with second chief, chief of staff, and attorney general.
Mhm.
Just have an open discussion with them, and he's very much one to. I don't want to say fix the problem, but he wants to create a better partnership with the tribes.
Mhm.
And he's already, I guess he was up here yesterday or the day before at Henrietta and here with the emergency management. And there was some discussions about, I need to sit down and work with Chief Hill and the AG, and, they're willing to sit down at a table. So he did, I guess, mention Creek Nation several times that they're willing to sit down and work this out. And I think he's making some headway.
Okay.
So hopefully, you can already see that he's kind of bumping heads with the governor already.
Yeah.
There's certain things the governor can do that he shouldn't be doing, and which we all knew that. But I think relationship would be better.
Well, I'd like to know, if he's going to pay us a visit. We have made the invitation to talk with him on this show at least twice. And, of course, the PR guy says, oh, yes, we'll take this under consideration, blah, blah, blah. You guys are very important to us. And the usual rhetoric that goes along with it. But when push comes to shove, we still haven't talked with him. And
He may be like me, may have to reschedule 3 or 4 times. But,
And I'm the bad guy, PR guy in this scenario.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
what the hell?
I know, man. I'm sorry, man.
Knock it off, Jason. I
What
know
are you doing? Yeah.
I know you back when you were wearing rugby shirts. Now, as we have looked at other items that have been important, of course, the Indian Child Welfare Act was just supported by the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this is workable law that doesn't do anything that the plaintiffs are saying, complaining about race or other legalities there. Now, that's pretty much hailed as a major victory for Indian child advocates. We were hoping to talk with our own people here, but they scheduled and then didn't make it. Didn't show. So I'm still looking, of course, to see how maybe our tribal government feels now that law has been reaffirmed.
it was a big win for all Indian country. And that's one of the things we stated at Intertribal, that, we all knew that in the very beginning. So the Supreme Court to reiterate, hey, it's, the Indian country can do it. Each tribe can handle it their own. It was just another loss for the state, I guess, governor. But it's proven, that we can handle it. So we are. We're going to, and which, like I said, the department is probably best to get their opinion as well, but we're ready to take on that task.
Yeah, well, I'll keep knocking on their doors.
I'll reach out to them too.
Mado.
And which, when I asked for all the, after I made that statement, at Intertribal, recommended all the IGWA, CFSA workers stand up. And there was probably one, so I said, well, there you go, they're out working.
Yeah.
So, they're busy.
Yeah, well, that's a huge problem there that's got to be dealt with. As we have been watching, we were kind of wondering what else was the topics of discussion during that intertribal. I think we got to look at an agenda. But what do you feel were the main subjects of discussion between all those tribes that showed?
Well, the ones I mentioned, Tobacco Compact, the IGWA. One of my main things, or well, not mine, but all of us, is these so-called groups that are popping up everywhere. Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida had one recently pop up, say that they're Mvskoke Creek Nation. They're north of Florida. And that's not the case. So I encourage everyone at United Nations of Oklahoma. I know Chief Barnes is well supportive, Chief Johnson, and it's affecting them too, especially in Alabama. I think we have possibly three or four that are saying they're the upper, lower creeks. Mvskoke Creek Nation,
The
Choctaw.
upper lower creeks.
There's one called Chero Creek. I don't know if that's a combination of Creek and Cherokee. They call themselves Chero Creek. And, you know, at NCAI, there's 574 federally recognized tribes. And I asked for the data on that to how many are members, actual members. There's probably 140 of a federally recognized tribe. There's 66 state recognized tribes.
Gosh.
So if there's majority there, they didn't have, which I didn't get to attend the last NCAI, but they didn't have enough for a quorum. So if you had more state recognized tribes attend, they get a lot of bills passed, a resolution in favor of them.
Well, let this Charo Creek ask you another question. My mom is from Boatman in Cherokee. As we see the appearance of groups like this, what is the problem? What is the, let's call it a threat that they represent when trying to put together a tribe to take some sort of nonprofit assembly and say, well, we're a tribe too? I mean, why should we be
You know,
concerned?
there is a process in place, especially through the government, that you have to fill out a lot of paperwork to show that you were once a tribe. There is a process in place, but if they're through Creek Nation, you would think they would come to us. That doesn't happen. So instead of going through the process, they'll go to their state legislators to have them submit legislation to say, yes, they are state tribe. And basically what I see is that they're trying to get all the federal funding, you know, all the grants that they can apply for. Well, once they do, you're taking away from the grants from the federally recognized tribe.
Right. That budget is not going to be increased.
No,
significantly.
and it's for, you know, I'm not disagreeing. I mean, there is a process in place, and we just want them to go through that process.
Federal acknowledgement process. That's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. And where you have to prove who you were, your ancestry, your culture, your existence in a particular area.
And the language.
We all did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, you know, we, the 5 tribes, and more tribes, we're on Charlie Teeters. So we can indicate where our original homeland were. But if you're there in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, how can you acknowledge that was your original homeland? That was ours.
Right.
So how can you say your homeland base is there when it was actually Mvskoke Creek Nation here?
You know, my wife used to work at the BIA's enrollment office back decades ago. And she used to see this thing pop up from time to time. People come in with these fantastic made-up tribal names and saying, you know, our chief signed this, therefore I should be able to get, you know, benefits they perceived, you know, a paycheck or whatever. And it just really has never gone away. We're still seeing people in high positions, particularly in academia, who have received jobs by claiming heritage, and it turns out they're not. You know, and it's some, you know, association or something like that. Now, does our tribe have to deal with that? Does our enrollment office run into this problem much? That to your knowledge, rather.
Not to my knowledge. I haven't heard. I haven't, you know, usually I talk to Nate, who's over Citizenship Board, but to my knowledge, I haven't heard any. But just to relate on what you were saying, these other states, that's one of the things that I've been involved with the Hickory Ground since being on the council, that a lot of the state in D.C. level don't know the history and don't know, you know, they assume there's another tribe in Alabama that's the true Mvskoke Creek. That's the way how they persuade that they are, but it's us here in Oklahoma. And a lot of the state officials in D.C. don't know. They don't know the history. They're not educated. So
was that tribe in Alabama supporters of Andrew Jackson?
yes.
Okay.
Let's
Drag that one out into the sunlight
Yeah.
there. All right. Okay. Well, we're going to move on. I know we've got more important things to talk about, but that's still, I think, something that I perceive as a threat. Like, what are they trying to do? They want the gaming. They want casinos.
Yes. That's what this one tribe in Florida was trying to do, working with the other tribe in Alabama.
Yeah. So I'm sure the Seminoles and the Mvskokes didn't appreciate that very much.
No, no. So I'm supposed to have a meeting scheduled to meet with their tribal leaders, Mvskoke and Seminole,
Okay.
coming forth.
Let's tackle one more question here, and we'll take a short break here. Now, a lot of people really aren't too familiar with the role of the intertribal group here in Oklahoma. So perhaps you could take a minute or two to describe real quick who they are and what their impact is. Because, we've heard a lot of associations get put together to fight for Indian tribal rights and things like that. But what does the intertribal group actually do?
The intertribal consists of the Mvskoke Creek, Seminole, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Cherokee. Have it every quarterly, and we have it at a different location at their facility, and it's just where we gather to discuss issues like these, tobacco compact and everything else. And each department, it has grown. This last that we hosted, each tribe always normally, the hosting tribe will hand out gifts, and I think my office said they had about 600 gift bags, and they was out by 9 o'clock that Thursday morning, so the attendance was well over 600. That's probably the most it's been. But all the tribal leaders get together, and each department, Light Horse has their own, the veteran department has created their own, social services, housing, education, and they all get the committee will discuss the issues. Realty is one of the biggest ones that has a department, and that's usually on a Wednesday. But it just grown where what each tribe is doing, and they share ideas. And it's, we submit legislation or resolutions, several that we've done throughout. There's an average of 5 or more every meeting in support, and we send it forth to the state or DC of all the 5 tribes being united that we support this resolution.
So for the, I guess, a casual observer, then the intertribal is sort of like a United Nations.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
With hopefully a little more power.
We even had it, yeah. It does. It brings light because and not to say the smaller tribes, but all the tribes kind of, which other organizations see the 5 tribes being one of the strongest, but it makes a big impact when we submit resolutions. And we'll have other organizations in Oklahoma that will get a copy of our resolution. I'll send one to United Nations of Oklahoma. Here's what we've done, and we'll do the same to that organization. OIGA will do the same. So it's just an impact that we can, that all the tribes are sticking together.
Yeah, it's more like a coalition of support, really.
Yeah.
I mean, bringing together sort of this unified voice of the 5 tribes that have historically been, I wouldn't say the leaders at all, but I would say, though, whenever you go to Washington and the 5 tribes are bringing a message, generally speaking, in Washington, they know that the 5 tribes have also consulted and have the support of a lot of tribes as well as just that group. Because that's one of the great things about the Intertribal Council, too. It's not just us, we're the 5 tribes and that's it. A lot of the things that come out of Intertribal Council have nothing to do with the 5 tribes. It's just statements of support for another tribe in their water rights struggle, or this tribe out in Arizona that has zoning issues with the municipality, or whatever. I mean, it's Indian country wide, and I think when you look around Indian country, there's these sort of like beacons that you light when it's time to have all of us together on a big issue. You've got the Association of Southeastern Tribes and Northwest, all of the tribes up in Washington and the Puyallups, and it goes on and on and on about they need support from around Indian country on different issues. And when you start in Chief and I's capacity, when you start sending like letters and things to congressmen and lobbying for Indian issues and making sure that if a bill comes up that we don't really jive with, that it gets killed. When you start doing those things that you have to do to make those things happen, that's exactly what you do as you go around to organizations like the Intertribal Council and say, hey, can we get a consensus message from you all on this issue for us to send to Senator Grijalva in Arizona about the things we're dealing with, and the Intertribal Council could say, sure, we'll do a resolution at our quarterly session about that, and we'll get it to you, and we'll put it in the letter of support. And congressional people see this, senators see this, and they go, well, I don't want to upset my constituents that are sensitive to Indian issues. I'm not going to support that. I'm not going to be a part of it. So it works in that respect a great deal.
Now, you mentioned Arizona and the tribes there and water rights. I see where the Navajos just lost a case there.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Well, okay. Well, I tell you what, let's take a short pause here, and we'll be back with more discussions with our Principal Chief David Hill and his sidekick, shall we say, Jason Salzman. Please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio, here on the Brew.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Okay, we're back with the Principal Chief of the Mvskoke Creek Nation and his Public Affairs Assistant, Jason Salzman. Here's a question that has absolutely nothing to do with the agenda. I understand Light Horse is actually going to get horses. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, they already done that. Actually, they showed up at the rodeo when we had at the festival. I think one of the officers, I think 3 of them, brought their horses.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the first time ever.
Yeah. And the slogan is, we're putting the horse back in Light Horse.
I've asked to get those guys on.
Just kidding.
So
But I mean, did you think that was all right?
Yeah,
I mean,
just
you think
fine,
it worked?
man. Yeah,
Okay,
we're not
cool.
horsing around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll stop that before it gets out of hand. We have been waiting for our own courts to make a decision regarding the freedmen. And of course, we know that's a huge issue, very touchy with so many people. Last time you and I talked, we had the phone ringing off the wall from people who no doubt wanted to discuss the freedmen, but I wasn't going to let them hijack our interview. Now, have you heard anything else? I mean, the court's been pretty quiet here.
It's been pretty quiet. I figured the ruling would come out, so we're just still kind of waiting. See what happens. See what the judge rules out.
It's a process, I mean, and we believe in the process of our courts, good or bad. And good or bad is subjective. That's going to be. We're all individuals. We're all tribal citizens that have our opinions on different issues and things like that. And one thing that we all have to do as tribal citizens, whether something comes out from our courts that we agree with, or something comes out from our courts that we're upset about, or that we don't agree with, we have to trust in our process and our courts, because that's what sustains us in this fight that we've been fighting for several hundred years, but now really for about 2.5, 3 years, is work with us. The sky is not falling. We have a court system that predates your court system, and that court system works. And if we have everything we need for that system to work, that you all have, and when I say that you all have, I mean city police and city fire departments and things like that. They get tax from the cities to fund those departments and everything. We don't. So we have just as much of the responsibility and half of the revenue coming in to build. So we need to get those things taken care of too. You know what I mean, policy-wise and in bigger terms.
Well, let me ask you to perhaps speculate, or let's just say stick your neck out. Has the court system really been delivering for us? I mean, we're still waiting on freedmen, and it still takes time to get other decisions. Other people are not happy about it. Others say, well, okay, just let it go. What are your thoughts there when you look at our court system now?
I get a report from their department. how many cases they've done. I mean, there's just they're going through it. They're going through the cases best they can, especially utilizing the courthouse of what they have. And we're looking to get another building, and with the master plan to make 2 or 3 more courthouses so they can conduct more. So they're doing the best they can.
With the McGirt decision, then the avalanche that people were fearing, I mean, has it just overloaded our court system where they're, as you can see it, where they're just really working so hard to keep up?
They are. It did. The first day, I can't remember how many, at least the Tulsa area, just dumped 2 or 3 boxes of cases that same day. You know, just right after the court hearing in the afternoon, Tulsa just jumped on, here you go. You know, and instead of calling, hey, what can we sit down, discuss, what do we need to do, how can we help? Instead, they just dropped it all. And that's, like I said, that's the fear-mongering that's being presented to them, that with the McGirt, everything's going to go haywire.
Oh, well, one example perhaps would be this Choctaw guy that got a speeding ticket over, and then the court says, no, Tulsa, you can't do that because of McGirt, and therefore you don't have the power to do this. I mean, what does that signal send that you see?
I think we get the same thing too. Have you seen a post that was on here? I think Oklahoma citizen drive 55, native drive 100, whatever. You know, that was just negative post out there, and we're going to have that. Again, that's just sitting down.
Inaccurate too.
Yeah, it's that's false. You know, that's just false information they're doing.
I think too, you know, with our court system, Gary, I think Chief made a good point. The thing that the public doesn't know is sort of I think there was this, it was going to be hard anyway. I mean, it was going to be hard in the first few years anyway, right? Because, let's say, if we could compare it to something, you know, they say those first few years of marriage, if you can get past those first 3 years or whatever, you know what I mean? And just how people say those first 3 are kind of the hardest, or because you're kind of feeling things out, you're getting used to living with one another, cohabitating, everything like that. And it's those first few years where you work out a lot of the kinks. And I think that when we look at some of the things that have been said, their whole case, it's very simple to see when you look at it this way. Their entire case leading up to McGirt, in every brief, in every argument made before the Supreme Court, was chaos. This will send Oklahoma into chaos. Well, what would you do if you lost that case to self-fulfill that prophecy that you had warned so many people about for so long? You would make it hard for them at every turn. So no phone calls, just dump the cases. No transfer of cases, no communication on the transfer of cases, just leave it out in the oblivion, and maybe the tribe telepathically will know to pick up this case. There are things that have actively happened to sabotage any kind of progress or ease of working together. That's what we're talking about. We're not just mad at the governor for just saying things. We're mad that that entire mentality has permeated to other people to look at this as a bad thing, as a negative that takes away, instead of all of it together making us all more.
Well, you can even see the post that come out from Kiefer.
Yeah, Kiefer Police.
Kiefer Police Department. I mean, how well they're working with Creek Nation.
What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Essentially is what the Kiefer Police
Basically,
Department
just do your job.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all took the same oath as everyone else to protect the citizens, regardless you're Mvskoke Creek native or Oklahoman. It's all about public safety.
Right, I drive through Kiefer from time to time, and
Within the speed limit, right?
Yeah, well, you're darn right I would. And the school zones and things like that, because I know that if they wanted to, or if there's a violation, they will pull me over and I'll get a ticket. So it's a respect, I think, that has to be there. As we look at some other issues, some things have come up. The tribe has been welcoming in a spot of land back in Georgia, a national park now, and looking at its relationship to our people and culture and things like that. Now, why is it important for us to be involved with a piece of land back in Georgia?
In history, which we've always been told in the past, never to go back. But we want to prevent the issue that happened at Hickory Ground, in Wetumpka, Alabama. So we've been going back, even I think during Chief Tiger and Chief Floyd's term. Now that we own property right there in Georgia, making Georgia the Brown property, just keeping that partnership with them, even co-managed type. That relationship has strengthened, even in Oxford, Alabama, where the original Arbeca tribal town was at. We have a great relationship with Oxford, and they want us to tell our true story, not just what you read in the books. And also Emory College, same thing. They want us to come back, Macon, Georgia. With my former chief of staff, Tracy Rivas, has made a big impact in Macon, Georgia, with the Park Service, and they want us to actually came this week, Monday and Tuesday. They're leaving today, I believe.
Yeah.
And just keeping that partnership, whatever. And they're real impressed with our meat processing plant. And that was just one of the things we mentioned when we took the flag. It's flying there at the city of Macon. And one of the discussion was, why can't y'all build one here and just do a joint venture, a meat processing plant? It was just an idea. So they're reaching out. They know there's opportunities working with Creek Nation, establishing land acknowledgement there. As a matter of fact, September, some of us go to Atlanta, Georgia for the Okie Finoki, and turn around and go on the 9th to Indian Springs. Just kind of like, land acknowledgement, or just acknowledge that that's still ours, Indian Springs. I just got word the other day from Tracy. They want us to come on the 9th to Macon, Georgia. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just a busy day. We went to Florida. The Treaty of Maltese, it does indicate that Mvskoke Creek Nation did come to that land, and it was ours, or with Cole, with Seminole, Mvskoke, and all them, but our name is mentioned. So we did have a few discussions with state officials there about a month and a half ago. So we're reaching out to where these are our original homelands, and that's what we're kind of focusing on as well when we reach out to them. Mm-hmm. So they just want to hear. Again, the history books are real vague of what they say about Mvskoke Creek Nation. So they're wanting us to come back to tell our true story. What do we hear? So
let me switch gears here and localize our discussion a bit more. First of all, your position, are you going to be running for office again?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did file yesterday.
Okay.
I couldn't Monday. My day was from 8 to 5. I couldn't take off. So
we might remind other potential candidates that they better get it done, because we don't.
No, let them know that filing already happened last week. Dang. Maybe next time.
And I think there's still a lot of moving parts. I just want to have that consistency going.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's elections have always been kind of a touchy issue all the way around.
We like to make history, and this chief did make history, though. I think he's the only one in the history of the tribe to really only get 2 years on his term. Seriously, I mean,
COVID.
His very first meeting I ever went to with Chief Hill was the coronavirus task force meeting.
Right.
In his first month. So
that's about a week
we lost an entire year.
I got Jason.
Welcome to the job.
Yeah. I was like, yay, this is gonna be fun. But no, actually, at the time, we weren't sure what it was still, and we found out pretty quick. Or you're gonna learn today. But we did learn in a couple of months, and so that really took away like an entire year from Chief. And also like, we were just surviving. We were just trying to make sure that people survived. Chief had to say, go home, everyone, so our elders and our most health vulnerable folks were not put in harm's way. And that shut the tribe. I mean, we all remember. That shut the tribe down. Yeah. And we didn't know where we would go from there. So I think Chief has this this renewed energy for this next, push at being a principal chief, because, like he said, there's so much now where you go, now we can really put it into high gear, and we're not just making sure that people are safe and not exposed to a deadly virus and meandering through the beginnings of McGirt and all of that, and floods and ice storms and floods. Entire communities shutting water off, and the nation having to jump in and say, we're sending water trailers, and they'll be here and they'll be here and they'll be here. I mean, the man's faced a lot, and so like I bet he's just tickled pink to be able to say, let's go. Give me 4 more years. I need a chance to be. I was
actually driving a water truck.
Yeah.
Right. Well, did you have a moment where you say, what have I gotten myself into?
There's times.
Okay.
But, through challenges, you go through them challenges, see what you can do better.
Okay. Oh, by the way, Jason's spoken like a true PR guy.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. No problem.
You just earned your keep there.
Well, yeah.
Another election related topic, there has been a bill that was introduced, and I don't believe it's gotten out of committee, about changing the way districts vote. I mean, we've had this general vote for anybody you want kind of situation for the last few years, but before that was you vote in your district for that district representative. Now that was changed, and people voted for who they thought would best do the job. There is as I say, this legislation, if ever approved, would change that back. Now, what are your thoughts there?
As this position as chief and second chief, it will stay that way. Everyone votes for that, because I did receive comments as a council rep that, because you had some, how does council rep know, say, from McIntosh on how, let's just say, Creek County and Bristol, how do they operate? What's their needs? And that's how most of them, majority of the citizens that had reached out would request it to have it that same way, to the districts vote for their representative. And that's the majority calls that I received when I once seen this bill introduced. That's, it's the wish of the citizens on what they feel is best, because they want to select who they feel is going to represent them.
What about the situations where you've got somebody, well, I'm voting for him because he's my uncle, or kinfolk kind of thing, or he did me a favor, I'm going to do him a favor, kind of, it's out there. Let's just admit that. But would you see any danger of that arising again? Like family votes for family kind of thing. It doesn't matter what kind of job they do.
It could. It could. But that's however the citizen wants to vote. I mean, you would hope that each one would select someone that they feel is going to be the best person to represent them. But that's like the U.S. I mean, I always vote for who I feel is going to be the best, regardless if you're Republican or Democrat or independent. When it comes down to the two, I feel that you need to vote for the person that you feel is going to run the nation. That's the way it should be.
Should, but I don't think it is.
No.
You've got this
hard.
No, we live in a world of wants and wishes versus reality, unfortunately. And the reality is that in tribal politics, you're absolutely right. But everybody knows that. We would talk if you were talking to Chief Batten today, he'd say the same thing. If you were talking to Governor Anatubby, he'd say the same thing. Of course, he doesn't have to worry about elections.
Him and Chief.
But that's more of a monarchy there. But no, you understand, Gary. I mean, and we're not, we're absolutely, agreeing with you. That does go on, and I think Chief said it perfectly. I think you hope that people vote for the right reasons, but that's all you can really do in his position is hope that our citizens, but we can help that as well with more information about candidate, forums and encouraging participation in the democratic process. And that's where we can help that. And are you voting, maybe put that out there for people to be faced with that reality. Are you voting for the right reasons? Are you just putting down someone that you know? And is that harmful? Is that, is that a better way than actually finding out about the person's platform and their credentials and their history and the things that they've done? There are things you can do, but at the end of the day, you do hope that people are voting for the right reasons. But also at the end of the day, it's democracy. They can vote why and for whoever and why ever they want to.
Sure, I think that's a situation facing our nation right now.
Yes.
And we've gotten, well, we won't get into that. That could be a whole new show.
That's a new show, yeah.
One of the things that I've watched and seen is the impact of the presence of certain tribes on TV. The Cherokees got OCO going, and of course they've got the budget for it. But you see Chickasaws doing their little bit, and you say, "Is that guy really Chickasaw? Or is he kind of, more Indian than out here?" But other tribes have done it too, and I was kind of wondering: is the Creek Nation interested in doing that? Would it do us any good? Do we need to have more of a public presence like that?
I think we do. I did speak with the marketing department on kind of come up with the plan, what we can do, and that's one of the things I noticed too with Chickasaw Nation. How can we do something similar or better, or what can we do to start marketing our tribal nation again?
Well, speaking of marketing, here's one. We noticed that that fuel station up near Glenpool is closed. He's got all this fancy stuff, and I think it's in a good spot. Why not? And then another enterprise like this Rex's Chicken over in Bexby is vacant. I mean, it's all gone. And I never really ever saw any, even commercials for this sort of thing. I mean, don't you have to do that sort of thing to market your product? And I was wondering why we hadn't ever engaged in doing more of that.
On Rex's Chicken, that's more under MMBE, Mvskoke Nation Business Enterprise, and since they're an independent agency, that's probably something they would have to answer.
Well, they will. I'm gonna try. I'll get them in.
And the station, I think we needed better management style. So that's another area, even though we do have it shut down now. But we did hire a new, we separated the Secretary of Nation and Commerce again. So we did hire Guy Barker. He's the acting Secretary of Commerce. So a lot of the business side, and he's pretty sharp. Yep. He's real sharp. He used to work for the Quapaw Nation. And so he's been there a week and a half. So that's one of the tasks that we told him to look at, how to better manage that gas station, so to speak. It is in a good location because...
Oh, yeah, I mean, Highway 75 has got all all these truckers zipping through there, and then, of course, the commuters from Tulsa, Glenpool.
Yep. Yeah. And if it's good to have Guy on board now because, I mean, you look at some of the economic development ventures that Quapaws have been involved in. If you go up to Joplin, you can't help but see the imprint of the Quapaw Nation in different areas of that, region right there, and big investment type things around the downstream resort there. You cannot miss it if you're going up I-44. So that's one of the things too that you see that track record, and like I said, we've got to build our chief. One of the best things he does is he builds himself up a good team, and then they execute, and we're looking for that too, and I think that was a great move as far as Secretary of the Nation. Imagine the responsibilities that come with that. You're doing everything from working with local municipalities to saying who can use the seal. There are a lot of parts and responsibilities at office, varied, that not too many people know about, unless they're like tribal government nerds like us. But I mean, you think about all those things that they do in that office. It really needs commerce should be somebody. You are the commerce guy. Bring the commerce in. Let's
Exactly.
go.
I mean-
And that's your number one priority and your number one objective.
Because we definitely had Zachariah Harjo overloaded. So he was doing both positions as Secretary of Nation / Commerce.
sure.
So with the separation, he can focus more on Secretary of Nation's job. And Mr. Barker is going to concentrate on Commerce.
Well, we'll be looking for that to be happening. I guess in the last couple of minutes we've got here, for me, it looks like our relationship with the city of Tulsa is kind of going downhill. Mayor Bynum has filled in his thoughts on a couple of positions here, and of course the traffic ticket thing. People are saying, well, we can't, enforce our laws, so therefore we're going to have anarchy. Blah, blah,
Again,
blah.
that's education, a lot of rhetoric that's going out. I think you talk to certain ones at the city of Tulsa. There's actually some that didn't support the nation, but with their position, they're kind of in the middle playing tug of war. But I did reach out to them to see if we would sit down at a table and discuss with our group and his group. But the very next day is when he done that amicus brief of the ruling. He
Chief,
wanted a second opinion.
Do you remember if didn't he talk about the fact that he wanted to talk to you
He
before
wanted to talk
anything?
before he sent that out.
Yeah.
But it was later that day he already done it.
And then we found out the posts come out about the opposition and everything like that, and
He wanted an opinion or clarified his opinion of it.
it's unfortunate because we have had a decent relationship with Mayor Bynum on some issues and things like that. It just seems like a couple of these issues that are coming up lately, we're going to need to go back to the drawing board on sort of who we are, and this is how it works, and you are slightly off in your assessment that there's now to be lawlessness and two sets of rules in Tulsa. It's just simply not true. It just simply goes to a different court system. That's it.
Right, it does have a potential for chaos and people coming to the wrong conclusions sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Unfortunately.
yeah, unfortunately, and then who knows where it might end up on the street.
Yes, sir.
Chief Hill, we've got about a minute and a half. I'll turn it over to you. Any final thoughts you'd like to share today?
No, I just, again, I apologize. It's probably his third reschedule, but it's always good to sit down and visit with you and discuss what the nation's doing. We're just looking forward to doing what else is coming in front of us. I know there's 12 projects that we submitted to the council, and exactly a couple of them that's already been the Mvskoke Hospital that we purchased, and as well as the DHS building that we was looking at north of town. So that should be finalized. So there's a couple of other projects that we're right there in completing. Some's going to provide more resources, more revenue. One of them is the master plan. Hopefully we can get a shovel in the ground within the next month. It's a master plan that Chief Floyd had put together, and we just, with the growth of it after Supreme Court ruling, we had to expand. So I'm just stick with the plan that he had, and we're going to move forward. So hopefully within the next month that we'll announce the groundbreaking. And, with support and approval of the council, everything went through. So we're pushing forward with that.
Okay, well, that's pretty much everything I wanted to ask. No hidden questions here on my list. I think we've run through them pretty well. Well, as I say earlier, I understand your schedule can get kind of berserk and changing at the last moment. Just hope it doesn't happen too often. then I'm stuck with an hour of, oh boy, how do I fill this?
Yeah, I'm gonna fill this spot.
Okay, well,
You always got Jason.
yeah, I'll put him on the spot and say, hey man, you know, like,
I can probably talk for an hour.
no, you won't.
Nah.
Okay, where are we here? We've got, according to this thing, we got no time left, so. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. But